he needs to come home. He has 13 grandkids, and they're all waiting here for him, and all of his kids are. He has 5 kids. And like, he's insulin dependent. He needs his medication. He's not going to make it out there very long without all of that.
A family in limbo for over 4 months now, and that was a daughter speaking about her missing father and her big concerns. He requires medication daily. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Michael Bounds. Welcome back to Brain Scratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for caring about these cases like I do. And at the beginning of this episode, you saw Brenna Crawford. She will be joining us later today to give us some more insight and details about this case. But before we bring her on, I wanted to go through the available public information to see what we could learn. Here we have a poster. It's showing that there is a $1,000 reward as of right now. Missing person at risk, Michael Arthur Bounds, diabetic and insulin dependent. He is 60 years old. Now, normally I'd be reading these details off NamUs, but for some reason there isn't a profile yet. We'll talk more about that later. He has brown eyes, black and white hair. He stands at 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighs 220 pounds. He went missing on November 27th of 2024, the day before Thanksgiving. And there are some circumstances that we certainly need to cover about that. And I think that there's a crucial time window that might be even more important than where one of his last items was found. But we'll get to that as we continue. Let's start by learning about where this case takes place. And I came to this Wikipedia page and my markups were still there. I know we've covered several cases from this area. This is in that Emerald Triangle that we've spoken about on a few episodes. This case in particular happening in Eureka. Eureka is a city in and the county seat of Humboldt County, located on the north coast of California. The city is located on Route 101 on the shores of Humboldt Bay. It's 100 miles south of the Oregon border, and as of the 2020 census, the population there was over 26,000 people. Eureka is the largest coastal city between the cities of San Francisco and Portland in Oregon. And if we zoom in on it a bit, we can see that it is right on the coast. With a bunch of communities around it, some of these that we've also spoken about, Blue Lake in particular, and Blue Lake actually comes up again in today's story. When we cover cases out here, we frequently wind up at the redheaded black belt, KimKemp.com. And I just want to once again thank Redheaded Black Belt for the coverage. Not only do they do local coverage, they do it right. They kind of stay on the stories. They don't just let them go. And we're going to see in the coverage today, they even have a unique way of displaying some information that is super helpful. But let's get to these details. Michael Arthur Bounds, 60 years old, has been missing since November 27th, 2024 from Eureka, California. He was last seen at his home around 4:30 p.m. on November 27th, leaving with a friend. The friend stated that Bounds dropped her off around 5 to 6 p.m., When she finished unloading her groceries and returned, Bounds and his car, a silver 2006 Dodge Charger, were gone. Now, I'm curious about the way that that's being described in this article. That makes me a little bit concerned that something could have happened there. I'm curious if she was actually waiting for him and, she went back outside and literally the car was gone. I mean, that could potentially be like a carjacking or something along those lines, but that's how it's described here. We're going to get more details from Brenna. The last known use of his credit card was in Blue Lake to purchase tobacco, but he's not used his card since, raising concerns as he typically maintains regular contact and habits. He chews tobacco. So, and if you've ever had a tobacco addiction yourself, they can be very hard to kick. It's a very regular habit, and it's something that you will go back to over and over and over. So his family's pretty concerned that, his accounts haven't been touched. That's the last time that he bought chewing tobacco, and nothing since. Family members have noted that Bounds was looking forward to Thanksgiving, particularly spending time with his grandson. There's been no signs of him. As we've seen in several cases, we have a person that's missing, but we also have their vehicle. And generally, I think that can be helpful because a vehicle is such a large object. It's got all kinds of identifying information on it. And in this case, the vehicle would be found, but unfortunately, he's not with it. Missing Eureka man Michael Bounds' car discovered. Still no trace of him. The car was discovered on Vance Avenue, and initial reports suggest it has been there since November 27th. Now, in addition to the request for surveillance footage in the Pine Hill area, near where the car was found, the family is asking for help in determining if Bounds was alone when he was last seen driving, and whether anyone saw the car headed towards Vance Avenue. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, where does that purchase of his chewing tobacco fit in terms of this time frame? Because the way the details came out in that first article, it almost made it sound like, he disappeared, and then there was this purchase of tobacco. It's actually reverse. As they started looking into the case, they were tracing his movements for that day, and they found that he had actually purchased that tobacco at about 3 p.m. So earlier that day, before he was last seen by the friend when he was dropped off at their home. Getting back to KimKemp.com, I just wanted to point out, so, this was reported at the time, of course, and at this time it was still important to try to raise awareness to get people to check their cameras. Now 4 or 5, almost 5 months down the road, I think a lot of those memories have probably been wiped on those cameras. But I really appreciate this because I hadn't quite seen this before. Not only do they list out areas of interest, it's so simple. They took a map of the area and they marked it up. Just what an excellent idea to put this out in the public like that. So anyone that lives in these areas, they were hoping that they would check their cameras. And it does seem like there's a few different cameras that kind of come into play with the understanding of this case that we'll learn about as we roll forward here. One of the important discoveries there is, according to the family, surveillance footage has been located showing Bounds' vehicle pulling up to the location on Vance Avenue with the headlights off around 8:05 p.m. on the night that he was last seen. With the headlights off, I checked to see when sundown happened in that part of the world on that particular day, and it would have been around 4:50. So seems kind of weird to me that the lights are off at 8:05, and just being perfectly honest, I'm wondering if that's someone that didn't want to be noticed. Maybe not Michael, maybe someone looking to leave the car in an area. And of course, for a missing persons case like this, when you have an item of such importance and value found, you're thinking, okay, well, that's where we're going to start our search efforts. And I have no doubt that law enforcement did search in that local area, hoping to find some more traces or to find Michael himself. What I'm curious about at this point, just knowing these basics of the story, is maybe it wasn't him that dropped off the car there. There's no confirmation that he was actually the one driving. And then there's the other question, even if he was driving, was someone else with him? We'll see if we can learn more about that when we get to the interview segment, but let's continue with the articles here. Police seek public's help in finding at-risk missing Eureka man. And here we can see some pictures of him that are a bit different from the other ones we've seen. These are photos from that day. They're from his trip to the store where he went and purchased the tobacco. In an update on December 4th, the Eureka Police Department obtained surveillance footage of Bounds at Murphy's Market in the Glendale/Blue Lake area on Friday, November 27th, around 3 p.m. Officers, including the HCSO Search and Rescue and the California Highway Patrol, have been actively searching the green belts near where Bounds was last seen. Now, that phrasing is interesting. They're saying where he was last seen, so that would make me assume that that was back at the friend's house. So it seems like they might consider something that happened to him at that location as well. But I'm pretty sure there would have been searches around the vehicle too. His vehicle has been towed to a secure facility as part of the investigation. Detectives from the EPD's Criminal Investigations Unit, along with a forensic analyst, are working diligently to locate Bounds. They are seeking any potential witnesses and attempting to obtain surveillance footage from the area. I'm curious about the forensic analyst. I hope that they're talking like a forensic technical analyst, because there was a very important item that was found in his car, his cell phone. His cell phone found on the passenger seat of his car. And that could certainly yield some clues as to what happened. And keep in mind these timeframes that we're talking about. He drops off the friend somewhere around 6 p.m. His car is seen entering that neighborhood where it would be left somewhere around 8 p.m. So that's that 2-hour window where I'm really wondering what is happening in that gap. Here's a quick look at some of the photos taken from the surveillance video from earlier that day around 3 p.m. I love that they have a picture like this because we have a great description of what he's wearing. We can see that it's kind of a greenish flannel print that is over a white t-shirt, maroon sweatpants, and he's got gray. They're kind of sneakers, but from what I understand, they're like step-in sneakers. There's no laces on them. We also get a couple of really good shots of his face. So we've got a good description. And that's another thing is some of these photos you'll see that are a little bit older. His look is just really different. Sometimes his hair will grow out. Sometimes he shaves off his goatee and his mustache. But that's why these photos are so important for this case, I think, just to help jog people's memory about the person that they might have seen, maybe in that car, maybe not in that car. Just to give a little more context, I've pulled up a map here. We know that at 3 p.m. he's at Murphy Markets, very far north and east of Eureka, about 18 miles. At some point he comes back into Eureka, and he is last seen dropping off his friend on Alpha Street. And his car would be found down here at Eureka and Vance. So honestly, Alpha and to Eureka and Vance is extremely close. But we know that there's some kind of time gap here, and we don't know where the car is in the middle of that time gap. I don't think it was a straight drive from one location to the other. There's something else that's at play with this story, and quite honestly, at this point, I have no idea what it is. But of course, this is happening right before the holidays. The family not only misses Thanksgiving with him, but Christmas as well. Back at kimkemp.com. Heartbreaking holiday season. Michael Bounds' grandchildren just want their grandpa home. Their mom, Michael's daughter, Brenna Crawford, is coming to understand that their kid's Christmas wish will likely go unanswered. Michael Bounds left his home in Eureka on November 27th, his deviled eggs partially prepared for their family's Thanksgiving plans the following day. As the days stretch to weeks, and now the weeks stretch to months, since Michael left his home to help a friend, the wondering plagues his family. It keeps me up at night, every night, Brenna said. During those sleepless nights, Brenna has gone over every possibility, including whether her dad could have just left somewhere and not come home. As much as she wants to believe he's out there alive, about to turn up at any moment, she says that doesn't fit with who her dad is. Michael Bounds is a fan of Copenhagen Chew, not going without it for more than half a day. His money burns a hole in his wallet, begging to be spent, and yet his money sits in his account untouched since he last bought tobacco in Blue Lake earlier on November 27th. The can of chew left at his home alongside all his future plans. So even that item, that personal item, if he was planning on leaving, I would think, of his own accord, I'm pretty sure that would have gone with him. As a diabetic, he is dependent on insulin that is also at his home. A knee injury rules out a late-night walk in the woods. His unlocked car and abandoned cell phone do not point to a robbery. That's another interesting point. The car unlocked when it's found. His absence, a sure sign something went awry, preventing the son, father, and grandfather from returning. From Michael's 84-year-old mother, his mother still alive, who is beside herself, to his 13 grandchildren who struggle to understand his absence, the family remains in limbo, wondering where he is. Though the hope of a Christmas miracle fades for the adults, the children hold on to the promise of happily ever after. Mom, I'm sure he's at Disneyland because he always wanted to take us to Disneyland, one of his grandchildren would tell Brenna. And with all that, I think it's time that we spoke to Brenna and see if we can clear up some of these questions, get some more helpful details, and share that with all of you. And I ask you guys, please do me a favor and help us share this story. We basically just hit all of the coverage. There's more articles that are written about this case, but no more details. They're all those same details. As you can see, this isn't a ton of coverage. That's why I asked Brenna for the help. So please help us spread the word about this case by sharing this video. With all that being said, let's start talking to Brenna. Brenna, how are you doing today?
How are you?
Doing okay. I saw a Facebook post that you made on April 1st, 2025, and you had a count of the days there. I believe today is now 128 days without your father. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds correct.
Yeah. How has it been going in terms of the community that you've pulled together there?
Well, the community, Facebook specifically, has been very helpful to us. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It um but the community itself has been very helpful. People have helped us do searches. People have hung up flyers for us. It's been nice to have that help.
That's great. That's great. And I know you're really early on into this, but you haven't hit any nonsense over there yet, have you?
No, everything's been pretty. We haven't really hit much as a problem.
Good. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, unfortunately, these cases will sometimes turn into targets for unscrupulous individuals. Certain private investigators might come reaching out with promises of, they'll be able to solve your case. Sometimes psychics are reaching out. Sometimes people really do really terrible things to these families. So I'm glad to hear that you're not experiencing any of that.
Yeah, I have my walls up because of this whole situation itself. So I'm pretty careful on who I communicate with. And
Yeah, I think that makes sense because there's definitely aspects of this story that strike me as something could be going really wrong in this story. So let's go ahead and get into the details. I just wanted to start by learning a little bit more about your father. I love the work that KimKemp.com has done with the story so far, but I still really don't know much about him, and I kind of want to share that with the audience. My first question is, why does he have a different name? Why does he sometimes go by Michael Hamby?
so when he was younger, his mom divorced his father and remarried, and he was adopted by his stepfather.
Okay.
Um, and his parents actually remarried when he was older. So then he went back to his correct name, which is Bound.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Gotcha. And he does usually go by Mike, right?
Yes, he always has gone by.
Okay. And if you could just tell us a little bit about the makeup of the family. How many kids does he have? Is he married? Like how does all that lay out?
So he does have a wife who he's separated with, but they were still best friends. Because they have 2 children together. My dad has 5 children in total. And they have 13 grandchildren together. So
Wow.
yeah, so they stayed really close for all the grandkids, and they just loved each other. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Am I right about my sense that we're talking about someone that kind of appreciates family? I've seen some photos that just make me think this is a guy that really loves his family. Is that accurate?
my dad would do anything for any of his kids and grandkids. My dad was a complete family man.
Yeah.
Family was his top priority, and it has been my entire life. This was the first holiday I can recall in my 32 years that my dad's ever missed a holiday.
Wow. Wow. If you could just share with us one of your favorite memories with your father.
I have so many, but when I was younger, probably a teenager, maybe a little bit younger than that, we lived in Willow Creek, and it was a lot warmer there than it is here on the coast because it was inland. And almost every day, my dad would be out there. He'd be throwing the football with me. He would be swimming with me, taking me to the river, to the mountains. We would go shooting every night up in the woods. Like, being in the forest with my dad is probably my best memory I have.
Yeah. Yeah. What did he do for work, and was he still working or was he retired?
So my whole life, he's been like contractor. He's helped build a lot of the buildings here in Eureka, a lot of the hotels here in Eureka. He did have a few health problems, so that has prevented him recently from not working anymore. He was on Social Security,
Okay.
but yeah, he's been a contractor and a builder his whole life.
Okay. And yeah, from what I understand, so we know about the insulin dependency.
Yes.
On top of that, it seems like he has some type of knee problem.
So he broke his knee a while back, and needed to get some metal and stuff put into his knee. So he does have some knee problems.
Okay. Is it
He also,
is it the type of thing that would impact, like, the distance he could walk?
oh, for sure, my dad, especially when it was cold outside. After that and knee injury, he did not like walking long distances.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I cut you off. You were going to say some more about his health?
Yeah, he also has cirrhosis of the liver, which he's had for quite a while. And there is a medication he took daily for that as well to help keep his liver functioning.
Okay.
So that's another one he's been with.
Okay. Can you tell us about the last time that you spoke to him?
I personally live about 30 minutes south of Eureka. So it had been a couple of weeks since I talked to my dad. My dad had come out to my house about 2 weeks prior to Thanksgiving. And he had just come out to make sure I was doing okay because I was in a bad mood. I have a lot of kids, so I get overwhelmed.
Okay.
He was just coming out here to make sure I was okay. And then he left that night, and that was the last time I'd seen him. But the day he disappeared, my sister and my grandmother.
Okay. And can you just, I know you've really been in the middle of this and learning all that you can about it. Can you just take us through that day? Like, what was he doing earlier in the day and where did it go from there?
Yeah, so it was the day before Thanksgiving. So my sister, she lives over on the other side of Redding near Bernie, California. And she was here visiting for Thanksgiving. My dad had woke up early that day to go to Safeway and get eggs and some other things because he was set on making deviled eggs for Thanksgiving. He really wanted them that day.
Yeah.
And he had started them and they were hanging out. They were all hanging out that day. Sometime later in the late morning, early afternoon, he got a phone call from a friend who needed a ride and later in the day. So my dad enjoyed the casino. He liked gambling. He had said he would be back in a little bit. He was going to go to the casino and go pick up his friend and give her a ride home and he'd be home.
Okay.
Well, he went to the casino and that's where his debit card was used and all that. But he came home after that to change his clothes. And from there, he went and picked up his friend from the hospital who was visiting someone there, I believe. And they actually came back to my grandma's house. So then they were both there only for about 30 minutes. They left around 4:30. They said that my dad said he was taking her to the grocery store and he'd be right.
Okay.
At 5:52, that's when we have his vehicle dropping her off. And then he pulled away. We can't see which direction he went particularly. But we know that his vehicle was parked at 8:05, not even a half a mile away.
Okay. So you have footage of him leaving the friend's house?
Well, we have surveillance footage of his vehicle pulling up to the friend's house and leaving. He never gets out of the car, so we can't confirm for sure that it was him, but it was his vehicle.
Okay. So you have his vehicle pulling in to drop her off, and then you're seeing the vehicle leave. But is the vehicle in view the whole time? Is it possible that someone else got into the car, is what I'm wondering?
The vehicle stayed right there in front of the camera the whole time it was parked there. So we have a pretty good idea of who was in and out of the vehicle. And he had tinted windows, so it was hard to see inside the car.
Okay.
But we can see it doesn't move from the camera.
Okay. So it's in view the whole time. You can see the lady taking her groceries in. The way that one of the articles is written is almost like she comes back out, like almost expecting him to be there, and the car is just gone. Is that accurate?
So that's where things get a little confusing. That is not accurate according to the surveillance footage. That is what we were told by the friend.
Okay. And am I correct in saying that this friend has not been named publicly anywhere?
Correct.
Okay. And is there a reason for that? Or are you doubting some information from the friend?
Well, the friend's been somewhat helpful, you can say, I guess. I think it's just the fact that she clearly goes into the apartment, and then he drove away. So, and she was also seen at the apartments around the time the vehicle was being parked a half a mile away.
Okay.
So I haven't named her because I don't want to start anything with that.
Yeah, and it seems logical, right? I mean, you've got her at home basically whenever his car is being dropped off. So if there was any connectivity, it's not like she has something to do with this where she was actively involved in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was in Blue Lake because the casino's out there, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And did he buy anything else outside of the chewing tobacco?
Just a sandwich, I think is what they had said. He bought a sandwich and chips or sandwich and a soda or something to snack on, I think it was.
Okay. Do you know if he was alone in that footage?
I was told that he was the only one seen on that footage.
Okay. And they do have, I could see they had an exterior camera too, because they got a picture of him from outside walking in.
Yeah.
But do you know if they actually got his car on some of those exterior cameras?
I am not sure on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, a big question for me in this.
I've seen a photo.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I believe I have seen a photo of his car at Murphy's Mark.
Okay. And we know the time frame is just, it's weird because when I first started looking into this, the whole thing about, his last purchase was made at this market that was 18 miles away. Like in my mind, because of the way that the information came out publicly, I was like, oh, wow. So he dropped off the friend and then he did this purchase. But then we learned that wasn't true. It was actually, this purchase was done earlier in the day. So information around this purchase probably isn't super important in terms of his disappearance. We're talking, 3-4 hours before.
So it was a lot of confusion when we were first started looking for him, because we had me, we had my sister, we were all gathering this information and things got miscommunicated to each other. And that's one of my biggest regrets that we let out, was that his debit card was used in Blue Lake, because it's I wouldn't say irrelevant, but it's really seems irrelevant because of the timing of it.
Yeah, and without that information, because in some articles, the time wasn't mentioned. And without that information, it opens up this possibility of like, oh, this guy took off on his family. Like, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see people jumping to that conclusion on this. What is going on with your family at that time, and when do they realize that something's wrong?
Well, my sister that evening was worried, but my grandma started worrying when he wasn't home by about 7:30. She was messaging me. She's like, your dad's not home. He said he was coming right back. He has these deviled eggs. And we hadn't decided quite yet what we were doing for Thanksgiving. Normally for holidays, we all get together, my cousins, my aunt, my brothers and sisters, everybody. But it was just kind of a weird Thanksgiving. So we hadn't had set plans yet, but my dad was so set on having deviled eggs because my sister was here and all this. So that evening, my grandma called me and said, well, since your dad is at home, unless he shows up, we're just going to go out to breakfast in the morning for Thanksgiving.
Okay. So there wasn't
And
an initial concern because, they knew he was kind of off to the casino at some point. He was helping friends at another. And, this is a grown adult man. Like he's able to go do things, right?
yeah. And it wouldn't have been crazy for him to be gone for 12 hours and us not quite know where he was.
Okay.
As soon as the morning hit, all of us were like, okay, something's wrong.
Okay.
As soon as I woke up in the morning and knew he was at home, me and my sister were texting each other, and we knew something had happened, because that wasn't normal.
So what happens on this Thanksgiving day? How does the rest of that day look?
So we all went to breakfast together. There was about 15 or 20 of us. We all went to breakfast. It was kind of awkward because we were sitting there just wondering where my dad was. I kept asking my stepmom, his wife, I said, have you not heard from him at all? This is crazy. So as soon as breakfast was done, my sister and my brother-in-law start searching areas, looking for his car or him. We had contacted the friend. We had been to the apartments, all that. And so they had gone one way, I had went the other, and we had just started looking for him pretty much right after breakfast.
Okay. And obviously you do not find him. At what point do you guys decide, hey, look, we gotta talk to law enforcement?
So I think we waited one more day besides Thanksgiving, because we had called to talk to law enforcement and asked what we should do. And is what happened. So this is where it gets kind of weird too. Rather than a missing person report, the detective or the person I spoke to told me that if we put out a welfare check on him, it would be an immediate broadcast across to all law enforcement in the county.
Okay.
Rather than a missing person, which would take a minute to go through and stuff like that. So I said, okay, yeah, let's do that, because the sound of an immediate action sounded better. So the night of Thanksgiving, welfare check went out on him, and I don't think law enforcement obviously ever made contact with him, never found his vehicle, none of that. And so it was the following morning, I called back to be like, okay, well, where do we go from here? And that's when the missing person report was filed.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting to me, because with the types of issues that you're talking about him having, I would think just the insulin thing alone, that should elevate him to an endangered missing persons. And I think there's enough conditions around here that it could be almost kick into a silver alert. Was there any talk about a silver alert with this case?
Did ask about the silver alert, and I was told that he didn't meet the qualifications because of his age.
All right, but regardless, we do get the missing persons report finally filed. I just want to backtrack one quick moment. This friend that he took shopping and dropped off, what type of relationship is that? Like, is he involved with this lady at all?
Okay, so my dad has a really hard time telling anybody no. My dad always likes making everyone around him happy, and him, in order, if anybody asks him for anything, he does it at the drop of a hat. So he likes feeling needed. That's my dad's number one thing. He likes to be needed and wanted. So I don't think that they had any type of romantic relationship or anything like that. I think it was more so she needed rides, she needed help with this and that, and my dad was there helping her with those.
Okay.
As he did to multiple people around him.
Got it. So we get the missing persons report in, and I ran into a note in one of these articles. Is it one of your family members that finds the car?
So yes, me and my sister, and my brother-in-law, we continued to search for days after the missing person report was filed. And I was posting on social media over and over,
and we had got a comment on one of my posts that that vehicle was somewhere over in that area. And so my brother-in-law and my sister went over there, confirmed that it was my dad's vehicle, and I went over there. And so we found the vehicle with the help of Facebook.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you find the vehicle, and then is it one of your family that gets the thought about, hey, let's look for Ring cameras around here?
So yeah, my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, my sister and my brother-in-law, they really did a lot of groundwork. They went door to door in all the neighborhood and all the streets asking for their security footage if anybody had any. My brother-in-law is such a people person. Everyone just let him right into their house to see all their footages.
Nice.
That he had asked. So that's where the footage of him dropping her off came from, and that's where the footage of the car being parked came from.
Okay. Now, the footage of the car being parked, is it literally, is it just the car driving into the area like it's passing one of the houses, or is it literally a camera that's on the spot where the car was left?
It's literally, I don't know how it worked out like that, but it's literally a camera right there where the car was left. So what you see is his vehicle pulling up, the headlights turning off, and then a few, I don't know the timeline, but a little bit after that, something triggered the Ring camera again, and it was brighter because there was headlights coming from the other direction, and it shined their headlights on the front end of my dad's car, so we were able to identify that it was my dad.
Okay. All right, so that answers something. One of the articles made it sound like the car actually pulled into the area with the headlights off, but the headlights were on while it was driving and they shut off when it parks?
Yes, that was miscommunication again between me and the...
Okay. Now, I'm glad we cleared that up, because I was like, sunset was like at 4:51 that day, so it...
Yeah, and my dad could not see. He would never be able to turn the headlights off.
Okay, gotcha. So, unfortunately, the camera kind of knocks out and it doesn't capture anyone exiting the car.
No, it literally just captures the front end of his vehicle, which is a Dodge Charger, so that's pretty distinctive.
Yeah.
And the older year Chargers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. It didn't catch any other vehicles driving into the area at the same time?
No, when it captured another thing where it shined the lights on it, that was a little while later. A good hour or so.
And that was just a car driving by it. Like, the car didn't stop, right?
Yeah, no, the car kept going and didn't stop. I'm not sure what exactly triggered the Ring camera to go off then, but...
Okay. And was the Charger still running and in working condition when it was found?
Yeah.
Okay. Were the keys in it?
No, the keys were not in the vehicle.
Okay. His phone is in it.
Correct. His phone was found laying in the passenger seat.
And his wallet is not in it?
No.
Anything else interesting that was in it?
No, there wasn't. Because obviously we wanted to be careful with what we touched, but me and my sister and brother-in-law checked out the vehicle. And there was nothing really in it. In fact, it was kind of awkwardly cleaned for my dad. My dad chews Copenhagen. That's the tobacco he purchased in Blue Lake. And normally when he drives, he'll put a chew in while he's driving, and he's messy and he drops it everywhere.
Yeah.
We didn't even find any chew anywhere. So that was a little weird.
Oh. Like the interior had been cleaned?
I mean, that's what it seemed to me.
Okay. Did he know anyone in that area where I know the car was kind of close to the drop-off spot for that friend, but did he know anyone on that particular street?
No.
Okay.
Not that we're aware of.
Yeah.
He had multiple different friends. In fact, his best friend as well lives over in those same apartments that the other friend he was dropping off lives in. So he had like 4 or 5 maybe decently close friends that lived over in those apartments. But
yeah, for me, like my mind is just so focused on that time gap. You've basically identified like a 2-hour window here, and his car is dropped off so much later. Like if he would have driven right there, he would have been there in like 2 or 3 minutes, it seems like on a map.
Yeah.
So there's something else that happened around all this, and we just don't know. There's been no other, surveillance cameras picking up that car anywhere else in the area in those 2 hours.
So I begged and pleaded with the community on Facebook, and I think it was the Nextdoor app. That was a new one I had started using for this.
Yeah.
For any surveillance footage from, and I named all the streets surrounding Pine Hill that we wanted, and we did not come up with any relevant footage. There is a street, there's like 2 main streets that you would have to take really to go anywhere from this location.
Yep.
All the other streets are side streets or just little residential streets. We found a person who lived on one of those streets, and her camera faced the road. She checked her surveillance footage multiple times, front and back, over and over for me, and never saw anything that resembled my dad's vehicle or anything like that.
Man, we're missing like a really big piece of the puzzle here with the other movement. There's somewhere else that car went.
Yeah. So his car was parked directly in the corner of 2 streets, Vance Avenue and Eureka Street.
Yep.
And at the time it was parked, that street was completely out of power too. So all that whole street surveillance footage, no one had it.
Oh,
we went
geez.
to everybody's door and kept being told, well, our power was out during that time. Oh, well, that's great. So.
And it was only like a half-hour outage, right?
Yes, it was a very short outage. It just happened to be at that crucial moment of when the vehicle was parked.
That is so insane. What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
But there is another piece to this puzzle, and that is the phone that was left in the car. So by the time you guys get to it, I assume the phone is dead, right? The battery's dead.
Oh, yeah. The phone was dead.
But was it still active on the day?
Yes, it was. It's still throughout the day, because my sister and my grandma had called him a few times during the day.
Yeah.
And got him on the phone. And then it wasn't until about 6 o'clock-ish that evening where his phone started going straight to voicemail.
Okay. Oh, but it did at 6?
It's 6-ish. My grandma can't remember the time exactly that it started going to voicemail, but she knows it was in the evening time and it was dark.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'd be trying to focus is on the information that cell phone can say about what happened, but I'd want to know, like, after 6, if that thing goes off right at 6.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I actually, speaking of the phone, I always used to like worry and take care of my dad. I'm the oldest of my siblings that live here, and I play that big sister role very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've always had Life 360 on my dad's phone.
Yes.
To follow and keep track. Well, about a month or so prior to him going missing, for some reason his location had stopped showing up on my phone, and I had been meaning to come into Eureka and look at his phone and figure it out. And I never was able to do that. So unfortunately, Life 360 wasn't able to help us much.
Oh.
But I did learn later on that the location had been turned off on his phone, which was probably by accident. My dad was not phone savvy whatsoever, and it had been off for quite some time.
Okay.
So.
Did he have a Gmail address?
He does have a Gmail address. We aren't too sure what that is.
Okay. So you don't know what the actual address is for it?
Yeah.
Was it a smartphone that he had, like a Android or?
It was a smartphone.
Okay.
But it wasn't like I have a Google Pixel 9. It wasn't anything like a nice new smartphone. It's just more of a basic smartphone like the Galaxy A15s were. And
sure. Did he have a home computer or a tablet?
He did have a home computer, but it wasn't really, it was his, his, he lives with in my grandma's house, and it's a very large home.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in the way back upstairs. And so the Wi-Fi didn't really reach back there. So he really didn't use it for internet access. He just used it for like solitaire games and stuff like.
Gotcha. Yeah. Man, just keep running into these roadblocks on all the electronics here.
Yeah.
Even the electricity on the street. I mean, that's just crazy. Well, I know I did see that you were looking to have law enforcement try to do some analysis in terms of the cell phone. Can you tell us about what happened around that and where it's at now?
Yeah. So we were able to identify some of the information from the phone, his phone calls, things like that.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that really didn't get us too far.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that there was some talk about like getting a limited scope warrant for them to try to get to the information because they don't have like probable cause for some type of criminal investigation at this point. Were they able to get that limited scope warrant?
I can't really speak on the warrants that have been used in this.
Okay.
But any information that was needed from the phone has been retrieved.
Okay, good. Well, I'm happy to hear that. What are your thoughts about that 2-hour gap? I mean, so we've got a couple of friends in the area. Was he the type of guy that, might go sit down at the bar for a couple hours on his own? Like what are the possibilities for that time frame?
Yeah, so I feel like my dad probably did have a friend in the area because my dad had friends everywhere. So somewhere where he frequented, such as those apartments, it's very plausible he had multiple people he knew in the area he was, friends with. I feel like my dad's vehicle did not leave the Pine Hill area after 5:52. But the Pine Hill area is a rather large area itself. So I feel like he went somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay.
Is my feelings.
And the grocery friend didn't have any insight. He didn't say like, "Oh, I'm going to go hang out with this person after this," or there was no information from her.
No. She says she has no clue.
Okay. I did see some comments in some of the articles and, even some of the information you're sharing here. So, his phone gets left behind, but he takes his wallet and keys. I know in these cases, one possibility people think of is, did they leave? Like, did they leave their family behind for some reason?
Right.
Hearing you talk about the location services being disabled, Life 360 all of a sudden stopped working. Where are you at with that possibility?
I've never thought my dad left on his own. Whether he was doing something and had a medical issue happen, that is a slight possibility in my mind. But still, that's not very probable for me. My grandma and my sister had seen my dad at 4:30 that day. So 4:30 to 8 o'clock isn't very much time. It's about 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I've seen my dad's health issues, most of my life. My dad can't go from being how he was at 4:30 to being just, what's the word I'm looking for?
Incapacitated or?
Yeah, that's just too short a time.
Okay.
He does have problems with his liver, as I mentioned, and so that does cause him to have high ammonia, which makes people very delusional, don't know who people are, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen that happen in such a short amount of time.
Okay. What other possibilities is the family talking about around this?
I don't know. We know. I mean, I know in my gut feeling something.
Okay.
Because there's just no other scenario that would stop my dad from coming home.
Right. Yeah, and so I assume he's not the type of person that's going to go drive somewhere, get out, and then like go for a walk, right?
No.
Right. So if there was some type of medical event or something like that, he would likely be found close to where that medical event happened.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. So it does seem like there's really a possibility that there's something else at play here.
And even if I've thought of the possibility maybe something was wrong with his car at the moment and it, started working again.
Mm-hmm.
But if that was the case, my dad was such a people person too that he would literally go to the closest house, knock on the door, and talk to them as he used the phone. He wouldn't try to walk somewhere and use a phone. He would just go right there and ask somebody.
Right.
So.
And it also doesn't address the fact that the interior of the car was not quite normal. It was cleaner than it should have been. I know you had some really kind words for law enforcement kind of in the first month. You were talking about the search efforts and how they were pulling all stops. How are you feeling about law enforcement at this point?
I still am very thankful for the law enforcement response. Is what I have a hard time with is all the red tape in the law that we seem to keep running into.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one for me. Law enforcement would search if we had it because it costs so much money to bring out. I mean, they brought out the plane from the fire mapping plane from Sacramento. They brought that up here for the search. They had canines, they had drones, it was a lot. And they would do it again if we had a probable area to search. We just don't.
Right. Yeah, that is what's tough about this case. And they did search. Did they search both the area where he was last seen at the drop-off and then also where the car was found?
So it's kind of hard to tell on Google Maps and whatnot, but pretty much behind the apartments is all a greenbelt area.
Uh-huh.
So the top of the apartment is all a greenbelt area all the way over to where the car was parked. So if someone was really good, someone would have to be really, really good in the woods to get from the apartments to where the car was parked, but it's all wooded behind there.
Okay. And it's been searched, right? This whole blue area on the map that you sent me?
Yes. And farther, and a lot more than that, just from what's on the screen.
But
I think it was like...
It is weird to me. I didn't put it together until you actually mentioned this, but it is weird to me that the car was over on the other side of this one particular area and then it's dropped off on the other side. Like, is that so that someone could get back to the apartments? Yeah.
So some of the story told at the beginning was that my dad parked the car back there to walk to the apartments. But that is so bizarre. And my dad couldn't see. It was dark. My dad knows better. And that's not a thing. So, but that's why we focused our search in there, because it seemed plausible, but not probable.
Yeah. Yep. Have there been searches in any other areas, or has it all pretty much just been here?
So all official searches, done by law enforcement and whatnot, have only been in this area.
Okay.
And this area does extend down to the Highway 101, and they actually overlapped and went over to the other side of Highway 101.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite a bigger area than that shows. As far as searching anywhere else, we bought a drone, a really nice drone. We've been out to quite a few different areas and search. Okay.
Yeah, it's tough because we don't have confirmation that he was actually with the car when it was dropped there. I mean, you might assume that, well, he should have been with his car, but the conditions that you're telling me about the car are making me question that. So, and that's where that whole 2-hour window is just so important, because, I mean, within 2 hours, someone could have driven that car 50 miles in one direction, turned around and driven it back and still got it to this location. So Yeah, that makes it really, really tough on the search front. Something else I noticed. Do you know what NamUs is?
Say that again. Sorry.
NamUs, the database. Do you know about
Oh
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went looking and I couldn't find a record for your father there.
Uh-huh.
So I entered one. So I just wanted to let you know that I've got that started. And typically they'll reach out to law enforcement to confirm the details that have been put in there. And then they'll go ahead
Okay.
and activate that. It's important because they do matchups with any unidentified bodies that are found in the area. So
Okay.
yeah, having his record in there, if there is a body that is found in the area, this can be a mechanism for helping to find that. I absolutely hope that is not the case, but I know with the
Thank you.
I know with the medical issues you've been mentioning that we're very concerned about that. So I just wanted to let you know that we got that done for you. So what are the next steps at this point for you?
I mean, I'm gonna continue my social media push because that's helped us up till now. I feel like at this point, ground searches really aren't gonna do much. It's been quite some time. As hard as that is to say, like I said, it just without maybe a dog, it's just not gonna do anything. I don't feel. So I'm just gonna continue trying to get information, keeping his name out there. I'm working pretty closely with the detective. I speak to him a few times a week. So that's nice to have that communication.
That's really good to hear. That's really good.
Yeah. So I'm just going to continue to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the method of operation for right now. I mean, there's just, they did search the area that seemed reasonable. And obviously you guys haven't found any information to help you from that point forward. And there's that mystery 2 hours is just really, it's opened up the potential for search areas so wide that you just need that next piece of information. You need someone that knows something to basically call it in is what we're looking for. If that happens to be you, please use that phone number that's been on the screen this whole time. The Eureka Police Department can be reached at 707-441-4060. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we end here today, Brenna?
Not that I can think of. I think we kind of covered everything we have.
Okay. And I just want to give a big thank you to Eureka Police Department and especially the detective. I don't know if you want to name him or not, but hearing that he's in contact with you like that at, month 4, heading into month 5, that's really special. I love hearing stories like that. So we want to acknowledge people that are doing that good work. So a big thank you to that detective as well. And I know that it's already been tough with the holidays, and I know your father's birthday will be coming up here in another month. So just please know that our heart's with you, and we hope that you find these answers that you're looking for.
Thank you. It's going to be a tough one for my grandma because his birthday falls on Mother's Day this year. So
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you gonna go visit her?
I'm going to try to get her to go do something for herself and try to get her mind off of life.
Yeah. I think that's a really good idea. A big thank you to Brenna for joining us here today and sharing this information about this very perplexing case. I certainly hope that she finds the answers she's looking for, and I hope she finds her father. Do me a favor and please show your support to her by following the Facebook page. I'll have a link to it in the description box down below. Missing Michael Bounds, continued search. On top of that, if you can, please consider making a donation to the GoFundMe to help fund this search, help hopefully raise that reward at some point. And of course, on behalf of myself and my supporters, we're going to be making a donation to this just as soon as I'm done recording here today. Michael Arthur Bounds, missing person, missing since November 27th, 2024. Can you be the one to help? If you are, please use the phone number that we've had on the screen and in the description box down below. If you can't be that person, you can still help share this video with others. If you can't do that for some reason, just an upvote or even a downvote, a quick comment, all of that interaction tells YouTube to show this video to more people. And that's what we need to do to really help this case. So please do that. A big thank you to our supporters. If you would like to become one, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee. We really appreciate it as we keep these presentations low on the commercials. You'll only see one at the beginning and one at the very end. We do that so you can stay focused on the case and we can be as helpful as possible with these cases. We can't do that without our supporters. So thank you guys so much. Take care. Have a nice weekend, everyone. And please join us again next week for another mystery right here on the Lord and Arts channel.